Hi, I'm Adam. I'm 35, a film director, and 3 days ago, my sister stole $200,000 from me using an old power of attorney form. Then she called from a luxury hotel in Italy and screamed, "Stop this right now!" The last normal night of my life, if you can call it that, was spent sitting at my mom's dining room table with a bunch of old Super 8 reels and a lukewarm slice of pie I didn't ask for. I was 15 minutes early, which my sister Leah still managed to call late. Her husband Brett gave me one of his faux charming smirks over a glass of something organic and overpriced. They were watching a travel show, Lake Como or maybe Geneva, something with violins and drone shots, and pretending they weren't watching it. Mom fluttered around with the pie like it was a baby bird that needed help standing. Dad was nowhere to be seen, which meant either golf or escape. I was there to digitize the reels. A simple task. A useful son thing. But then Leia leaned over the salad and announced, "You'll be glad to know we figured out your role." I blinked. "My role?" "In the family," she said like it was a line she'd been practicing. "You direct. We live. You invest in futures like ours, and in return, you get to feel useful. That's the win-win." Brett added, "You're the structure. We're the story." It hit like a slap hidden in a compliment. Mom didn't react, just wiped an invisible crumb off the counter. That's her move: avoid the emotional mess, clean the physical one. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay." Because when someone tries to assign you a supporting role in your own life, the most disarming thing you can do is refuse the audition. I left that night feeling like someone had smuggled a threat inside a thank you. I tried to shrug it off. I went back to set. I directed scenes about love and betrayal and consequences. I paid crew. I delivered cuts on time. I was fine. Then came the invite. Leia and Brett were hosting a celebratory dinner. The menu was curated. The vibe was candlelight with passive-aggressive undertones. Midway through the meal, right after the lamb shanks and before the dessert course Leia described as postmodern, they made their announcement: a family trip to Europe. With Brett's parents. First class. Luxury hotels. A bonding experience before the next chapter, Leia said, hands clasped like a motivational speaker. The room turned to me. Mom's eyes said what her mouth didn't: make this happen. They needed a little help, of course. Flights were insane. Hotels in August. Unforgiving. She said, tight, like it was a cute joke, not a financial reality. Then the kicker. It's not even a loan. More like a temporary transfer. I asked how much. Leia took a sip of wine and said, 200. I waited. 200 what? She blinked. 1,000. I laughed. A full-body, tired, disbelieving laugh. Then I stood up and said, I can't. And I won't. 2 days later, $200,000 vanished from my account. Turns out, the power of attorney form I gave Mom during a health scare 2 years ago was never cancelled. And someone, Leia or Brett or both, used it to authorize the transfers. Family support, and travel, the memo said. I sat on my couch, staring at the bank screen, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck with my own name on it. And then, in the middle of a scene block on set, Leia called from Europe. Furious. Her card declined. The hotel said the payment reversed. Brett's parents were stranded in the lobby like extras in a heist film gone wrong. Fix it, she snapped. I didn't. I filed the police report. I revoked the POA. I froze the accounts. And then I answered her call. She screamed. I stayed calm. You're ruining us, she said. No, I replied. I'm just refusing to let you ruin me. Leia didn't call again that night. She texted. Then Mom texted. Then Brett sent an email that began with, "Hey bro," and ended with, "We can fix this like adults." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent screenshots to my lawyer, whose response was so beautifully dry I considered framing it. This is not a misunderstanding. It's premeditated misuse of legal authority with financial damages exceeding felony thresholds. He added, "Do you want to press charges now or wait until they default on repayment?" I said, "Let's give them the option to choose wrong." We drafted a repayment agreement. Monthly installments, listed collateral, a warning that one missed payment triggered full enforcement. The document was cold. Professional. It had the soul of an accountant and the teeth of a shark. We emailed it to Leia and Brett. CC'd Mom. Brett replied in 4 minutes. We're not signing anything until we talk face to face. This is family. Leah followed with a paragraph that sounded like it was lifted from an apology Hallmark couldn't sell. She talked about duty. About love. About how I'd lost perspective in my Hollywood bubble. Then came the kicker. You were always the dramatic one, Adam. This is just another performance. That's when I knew they still didn't get it. See, I don't throw tantrums. I write scripts. I don't scream. I shoot coverage. And I don't do revenge. I do reshoots, painstaking, controlled, expensive. While they argued tone and guilt, I secured every account I had. I cancelled linked devices. I opened new lines with 2FA so tight even I had to call myself to verify. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every transfer they'd made from my accounts in the last 2 years. She found $11,347 of miscellaneous reimbursements, tied to Mom's name. Gas bills. Grocery runs. One landscaping service receipt for a home I didn't own. I didn't tell Mom. Yet. Meanwhile, the family group chat exploded. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years piped in with opinions. One wrote, "You don't take family to court, bro." Another chimed in, "Adam, you were always the serious one. Chill. It's just money." I muted the thread and went to scout locations for my next shoot. I stood on a quiet road in Topanga Canyon while 2 producers argued about fog machines, and I wondered if my sister understood she just made herself my full-time job. A week passed. Then a wire transfer hit my account. The first installment. It wasn't all of it. But it was a start. Accompanied by a signed agreement. Minimal interest, no penalty, yet. I told my lawyer to keep it lean, survivable. I didn't want their ruin. I wanted their respect. Or at least their distance. The next night, Brett's dad called me. Unlisted number. "Let's be reasonable," he said. "You don't want to make enemies in this business." I put him on speakerphone and hit record. My lawyer laughed when he heard it. "They think they're still playing Monopoly. You're playing chess." That Friday, my crew bonuses went out. Grip, sound, second AC. Every last person who worked a 14-hour day in the rain got their cut. One guy emailed me a photo of his rent receipt with a single word, "Thanks." It hit harder than any Emmy ever could. Meanwhile, Leia went quiet. Her Instagram went dark. Brett's account was still posting, though. A blurry cappuccino with a caption. "Luxury interrupted by drama. Still blessed. Still blessed." I watched the story disappear into pixels, and all I could think was how fast people turn generosity into entitlement, and then call it blessing when they don't pay the bill. So I printed the story's receipt. I filed it in a folder labeled Leia. Underneath the POA, under the chargeback dispute, under the notarized copy of the letter my lawyer would send if they missed a single payment. I wasn't angry anymore. I was prepared. And in my world, that's worse. It happened on a Wednesday. The kind of quiet, forgettable day that usually ends with a sandwich and email triage. Leia showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. Uninvited. Unhinged. I was just getting back from a meeting with my editor. Notes on the third act, nothing dramatic, until I opened my door and found her standing in the hallway holding 2 iced coffees like we were best friends and nothing was on fire. "Don't slam the door," she said before I could say anything. I didn't. I stepped aside. "You've got 5 minutes. She stepped in, scanned the room like she was hunting for leverage. "You redecorated." "I moved," I said. "You've never been here." She blinked. "Oh." That was the first moment I thought, maybe she doesn't actually know me at all. Leia set the coffees down like a peace offering, which, considering the $200,000 theft, was insultingly on brand. "I came to talk," she said. "You had email for that," I replied. She tried a laugh. "It died fast." "I get it," she said. "You're mad." "No," I said. I was mad. Now I'm surgical. That hit something. She winced. Then she dropped into the chair across from me like she was collapsing under her own charm. "Look," she said. I panicked. "Brett said you'd be fine. Mom said you wouldn't even notice. And I just thought. You'd help yourself and explain later?" She hesitated. "Yes." I nodded. "Okay. Then explain." Silence. For a second, I saw the flicker of realization. That deep, cold comprehension that comes not when you're sorry, but when you understand that sorry won't help. "We signed," she said quickly. "The payment plan. We wired the first part. You got that right?" I nodded. "I did. So can you unfreeze the credit card?" Just for groceries and essentials? We're not asking for the full limit back. Just some breathing room. I stared at her like she'd started reciting dialogue from a different genre. You stole from me, Leia. I know. You forged a signature. You impersonated legal authority. You committed fraud. I know, Adam. She was crying now. Real tears, or good acting, it was impossible to tell. I'm pregnant. The words dropped like she expected them to be a reset button. I blinked. No, you're not. She froze. I called your OB. The one you name-dropped in that photo caption. She's on vacation in Portugal. Her office confirmed you haven't been in since January. You're not even trying. You just thought baby would sound better than budget. Her lips parted. No words. I'm done, I said. Not just with the money. With the performance. With this idea that you get to write the script and I have to play the part. You think you're so noble, she whispered. But you're just selfish. Cold. Alone. I sleep at night, I said. Can you say the same? That landed. She stood, still trembling, and walked to the door. Then paused, hand on the knob. I hope you enjoy your little movie life, she said. You'll win your little awards. But you'll die with no one next to you. I didn't flinch. Better that, I said, than dying surrounded by people who only stayed because they needed a ride to the airport. The door clicked shut. I stood there for a full minute before moving. My coffee had gone cold. My inbox had 14 new emails. My life, somehow, was still mine. And the next day, a surprise arrived. A wire transfer. $20,000. From Brett. Memo line, first real payment. Attached, a copy of the signed agreement with both their signatures, notarized. Real collateral this time. Stocks. Car titles. A joint brokerage account I'd never heard of. A note followed, we will pay what we owe. But this is our last apology. Good, I thought. Because it was the first one that counted. The next 2 weeks were weird. Not quiet, weird. The kind of stillness that feels like a hell breath, like a pause in a score where you know the next note might be a scream. Every day, a new thing arrived in my inbox. A legal doc. A payment confirmation. A message from my lawyer. So far, they're taking this seriously. He sounded surprised. I wasn't. People like Brett take things seriously when money's involved. People like Leia? When attention dries up. Mom stayed oddly silent. No calls. No guilt-laced voicemails. Not even a "hope you're well" text, which in our family is code for I'm watching you from a moral high horse but pretending not to. Until the envelope arrived. Cream-colored. Heavy paper. Real stamp. Handwritten return address in Mom's loopy script like it was a wedding invitation. Inside, a letter. 2 pages. Folded so precisely I could picture her smoothing the creases with her knuckle like she did with gift wrap. Adam. I don't know how we got here. I only know that I miss when things were easier. When you came home and I made tea and you told me about your day like it mattered. I never wanted you to feel like an ATM. I never meant for this to happen. I just trust your sister to bounce back, and I trust you to be okay. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I leaned too hard on the one who always stood straight. I'm sorry. For the assumption. For the blindness. For thinking your silence meant strength instead of hurt. Please don't freeze me out. Love. Mom. I read it twice. It didn't fix anything. But it didn't lie either. That night I didn't respond. I went to set, filmed a scene where a mother apologizes too late. I watched the actress sob into her son's sweater, and wondered if anyone ever nails the timing in real life. The next day, I visited the house I'd been saving for. The crooked one near the studio. Tiny porch. Weird floor plan. Backyard shaped like a question mark. The realtor said, "It's a fixer." I said, "Good. So am I." I made an offer. No fanfare. No Instagram tour. Just a direct deposit and a line item in my budget spreadsheet labeled Sanity. Then, because I am who I am, I sent a copy of the wire transfer to my lawyer and updated my production accountant so she knew not to touch the wrong funds. I added a note to myself, buy a fireproof safe. Install deadbolt. 3 nights later my grip, James, texted me a photo. His kid holding a toy camera and grinning like a gremlin. Got this with the bonus. He says he wants to be like Uncle Adam. I stared at the picture for too long. Then I sat down and cried. Quietly. The kind of crying that doesn't come from one thing. It just leaks out of all the cracks you patched and ignored for too long. That same night, Leia texted. A picture of a grocery cart with the caption, "Budgeting sucks. But we're trying." No emoji. No ask. No manipulation. I replied, "Good." That was it. Not forgiveness. Not friendship. Not a return to anything. Just acknowledgement. A line drawn with a fine pen. I wasn't rebuilding anything. I was building new. From zero. Moving day came with bad coffee and an aching back. I hired exactly one helper, Mario, the same guy who once gaff-taped a light rig back to life on set during a storm scene. He didn't ask questions. Just carried boxes like secrets, and nodded at the crooked hallway like it made sense. "This place has character," he said. "That's code for mold," I replied, and we both laughed. The house was small, but it was mine. No cosigner. No family equity. No hand-me-down strings tied to every light fixture. I installed my own lock. New key. No spares. I slept on a mattress on the floor that night, surrounded by boxes labeled Dad's reels, scripts draft, kitchen maybe, and stuff I probably don't need. The refrigerator hummed like it was nervous to be in service again. Outside, the street was so quiet I could hear my neighbor sneeze through his bathroom window. And yet I slept. Hard. The kind of sleep that tastes like safety. 2 days later, Mom showed up. I didn't invite her. She knocked once, then stood there holding a box of tea and a bag of oranges like she thought this was a sitcom. "You didn't return my letter," she said. "I read it," I said. We stood in silence for a beat too long. She glanced around. "It's humble." I nodded. "So am I. Can I come in?" I hesitated. Then I opened the door halfway. That was the new rule. People didn't get automatic access anymore. They had to wait for the cue. She stepped inside slowly, looking at every detail like it was a test. "You have Dad's photo on the shelf," she said. "Of course. You kept the old kettle. Some things still work." She sat. I didn't offer tea. She noticed. "I talked to your sister," she said. "I told her we crossed the line." I didn't say anything. "I told her we won't be bailing her out again." I raised an eyebrow. "She cried," she said. Then she said, "Thank you?" "Not to me. To you." Quietly. "I don't think she knows how to mean it yet, but she's learning." I let that sit in the air like fog. "I'm not asking you to forgive her," Mom added. "I'm asking you not to let this make you bitter." I smiled without humor. "I'm not bitter. I'm specific." She flinched. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out the POA form, the original, signed, notarized, now legally revoked and stamped. She laid it on the table like an offering. "I burned my copy," she said. "This one's yours." I folded it in half and tucked it into a drawer labeled "Not Today, Satan." Before she left, she touched my arm. "You're not the villain in this story, Adam." "I know," I said. "I'm the editor." She looked confused for a second, then nodded slowly. Outside, she stood on my porch like she wanted to say something else, something big and movie-ending. But she didn't. She just whispered, "Don't vanish," and walked away. I watched her go, then closed the door and locked it. That lock, simple as it was, felt like a boundary made physical. Like I could finally choose who got in. Later that night, I framed a new photo, Dad holding the camcorder, me in the foreground at age 12, smiling like I knew something big was coming. I did. It just took me 23 years to believe I was allowed to direct it. 3 weeks after the dust settled, the repayments steady, the lawyers quiet, the family group chat still muted, I did something I hadn't done in 10 years. I took a weekend off. No call sheets. No dailies. No budgets, no client notes, no assistant texting me about camera trucks. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb, brewed coffee in a real mug, and sat on the floor of my new house staring at a blank wall like it might give me instructions. It didn't. So I started hanging pictures. There was one of my dad, the year he handed me my first camcorder. One of my first shoot with a 2-person crew and a dream. One of a sunset I caught by accident on a scouting trip when I was too broke to eat, but somehow still chasing light. All pinned like proof that this version of my life wasn't a fluke. That I had built something durable, even if it still creaked in places. At noon, there was a knock. Not frantic. Not Brett. Just present. I opened the door. Leia stood there, holding 2 iced teas and a paper bag. "Sandwiches?" she said. "Budget-friendly." I stepped aside. She walked in without performance. No bracelets. No shoes. Just a woman standing in her brother's living room, trying not to mess anything up. We sat on the floor. No music. No TV. Just the soft hum of a house getting used to being safe. She handed me the bag. I got the kind you like. I remember this time. I nodded. Thanks. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then she said, "We're on month 3 of payments. On time. Full amount." "I know," I said. "I see the receipts. We canceled 3 subscriptions." Brett started driving Uber. I started cooking. I blinked. "Cooking?" She smiled. "Pinterest is terrifying but effective." Then she pulled out a piece of paper. Folded twice. "Smooth. Deliberate." "I wrote something," she said. "Don't roll your eyes." I didn't. She read it. It was short. Honest. No grand gestures. Just a list. Of the times I'd helped her. What it cost me. What she'd never said out loud. A line at the bottom: "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I am trying to become someone you wouldn't mind being related to." I sat back. That hit harder than a check ever could. "Thanks," I said. "I still don't know who I am," she admitted. "That makes 2 of us." We sat there for a while, 2 adult siblings who used to orbit the same fire, trying not to get burned. We'd failed. We'd flailed. But we were here. Leia left around 3. No promises. No performance. Just a quiet "See you later." That night, I stood in my kitchen and stuck one more thing on the fridge. Right under my rule, "I am not your ATM," I pinned her folded letter. I read it once more. Then I made tea. No sirens. No screenplays. No applause. Just me, a house with uneven floors, and a bank account that held. That, I realized, was what real peace looked like. Not silence, but safety. A story that ended without needing a rewrite.